This is the Washington Times front page for Monday, June 20th, 2022. Thanks for starting your week with us. I'm George Gerbo. Congressman Adam Schiff says it's possible the House January 6th committee may subpoena former Vice President Mike Pence amid growing calls for his testimony. The Washington State Democrat wouldn't rule out the possibility in an interview with CNN. Valerie Richardson reports Select Committee Chairman Benny Thompson told reporters last week the panel was still engaging with Pence's lawyers as pressure rises to bring him to testify. Committee members said that at one point the mob of Trump supporters that breached the U.S. Capitol on January 6 made it to within 40 feet of Pence. The Select Committee's next hearing is scheduled for 10 a.m. on Tuesday. The global economic damage sparked by Russia's war in Ukraine may get much worse. Ben Wolfgang reports economists and foreign policy observers say Russia still has some cards left to play, particularly in the fuel and food sectors, and could soon decide to use them for leverage in peace negotiations with Ukraine. Such tactics would likely drive gas, grain, and wheat prices even higher. Russian officials also said last week they were cutting natural gas supplies to Europe even further, bringing the current level of the major Nord Stream 1 pipeline down to 40%, according to Reuters. The Kremlin blamed the showdown on delays in planned repairs to the pipeline, but European officials aren't buying that rationale. Republicans are gearing up for a showdown over a proposal to include women in the draft, as House and Senate committees hammer out the annual National Defense Policy Bill. Joseph Clark reports the Senate version of the National Defense Authorization Act, which passed committee markup recently, offers key wins for hawks on the Hill, including a $45 billion top-line boost to the Pentagon's budget. But the bill also reintroduces language requiring women to register for the Selective Service, which Republicans have signaled is a non-starter. The measure passed in the House version of the bill last year, before it was removed from the final version in conference between the House and the Senate. Supporters of the provision note the rising number of women already serving in the military, and that virtually all military assignments, including combat jobs, are being filled by both men and women. You can read all of these stories at WashingtonTimes.com/front page. You can also find our entire lineup of Washington Times podcasts at WashingtonTimes.com/podcasts. A conservative interest group says that suicide rates are on the rise in states where minors may access hormones and puberty blockers without parental consent. Valerie Richardson reports a recent study by the Heritage Foundation found that from 2010 to 2020, the suicide rate rose by 1.6 per 100,000 Americans aged 12 to 23 in states where minors don't need their parents' permission to undergo routine medical care. It represents a 14% increase in the suicide rate in states with more lenient policies. Before 2010, the two groups of states did not differ in their youth suicide rates, according to Heritage. A survey this year by the Trevor Project, a suicide prevention and mental health organization for LGBTQ youth, found that more than half of transgender and non-binary young people considered suicide in the previous year. And finally, Dave Boyer fact-checked some recent statements by President Biden on the economy. In comments to the AFL-CIO in Philadelphia, the president said that families were carrying less debt and that their average savings was up. But Federal Reserve data shows that total household debt has risen by $1.5 trillion since the president took office. And total credit card debt hit a record high in April of $1.103 trillion, slightly higher than its pre-pandemic level. In the same speech, the president claimed inflation was worse in other parts of the world than in the United States, but the current 8.6% domestic rate of inflation is higher than 14 of the 24 G20 nations, according to TradingEconomics.com. Find all of today's front page stories at WashingtonTimes.com/front page or on the Washington Times app, and find us wherever you get your podcasts. Just search Washington Times in your favorite podcast app. You can also find us on Twitter and Instagram at WashTimes for breaking news, sports, commentary, and more. For the Washington Times, I'm George Gerbo.